Family, welcome. Friends, it is so good to see you all. Eric, Diane, we are going to have a good time together speaking about global seed planters and how God has woven his story through you and what you've been up to in terms of reaching the world, all nations, all tribes, all peoples, in places that perhaps you've never even dreamt of or imagined. Diane, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here. I can't tell you how excited I am. Thank you for the invitation, Eric.
Yeah, my great pleasure.
What an honor to be on the Grand Weaver. And, you know, for me, I think, this is the name of the podcast, but it could be a nickname for God, right? Because the Grand Weaver of all the great stories, right, is none other than God himself.
That's right. Yeah, he is the Grand Weaver, for sure.
Oh, good. Dan, can we dive right in with you, my friend? Maybe folks know or don't know. We tried this before, and we're bouncing back. This is round 2. We had some tech challenges a time before, and we were missing our friend Eric. He's back. He's healthy.
Here I am.
It's good to be together. But talk to us a little bit. Your ministry, Global Seed Planters, it started with humble beginnings. A farm girl we have sitting in front of us. Tell us about where this all started for you.
I grew up on a dairy farm about an hour and a half from Minneapolis, St. Paul. Just across the river into Wisconsin. It was definitely humble beginnings. I never dreamt in a million years that I would be living this life. It was a small dairy farm, a family of 6, farmed 400 acres, had 100 head of cattle. A little bit of an old MacDonald had a farm, kind of a farm.
Okay.
We had horses and pigs and sheep and chickens and dogs and cats. Made our living, though, off of milking cows. So I learned a hard work ethic there. You know, when you're a farmer, you've got to get up early, and an average work day was 14 hours. 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. That was my life. But you know what? I loved it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But it's where I first, I wanted a personal relationship with God. When I was 3 years old, I climbed the highest pine tree on the farm, 50, 60 feet up in the
Out
air.
of all the tree types, you picked a pine tree.
Right, I picked a pine, so I could,
I knew you were interesting, but this is...
it was a little bit I was a little bit swaying, right? But the reason I did it, you'll understand, is because I wanted God to be able to hear me. And I thought the closer I got to him, the better chance I had that he would hear my voice.
Okay.
So I climbed that pine tree and I yelled, God, I want to talk to you. I want you to hear me. And so even then, God had put in my heart this desire to know him, to really know him for myself. I wanted to have conversations with him.
Yeah.
You know, that stirring was all there on the farm. And if I were to tell you honestly, I don't remember a single sermon, although I was in church every week. I don't remember a one from a church building, but the sermons from the farm, I remember every one, and they changed my life. God spoke to me through the animals. He spoke to me through nature.
So how'd you get unstuck from the tree?
My dad had to come out. Getting up was one thing. Getting down where I had to hang and not see. Dad! I should say before Dad, it was Mom hanging clothes in the yard, looking across the creek when I was yelling at God. Diane Marie Brask, what are you doing up there? Mom just ran through the cow pasture and across the creek, and she was so worried, right? But the point was, I wanted to get close to God. Yeah.
Well, Eric, I'm wondering, before, Diane, you take a moment to think about the bridge here between that small town experience, your connection. You had a really impactful event that you attended that sparked your interest in going abroad and participating in ministry. But Eric, talk to us really quickly just about this idea about what the Grand Weaver is and does. What's its purpose? What does it mean for us?
It's a great question. And it's interesting because before God woke me up and spoke to me early in the morning, he brought Diane and I together at a meeting, and we had just met and we were sitting next to each other. And Diane is sharing a little bit of her story, and we'll ask a question a little bit later on about a part of your ministry. And I wanted so badly to help.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the means.
Yeah.
And so that was part of what was prompting this whole vision for the Grand Weaver. And the desire of my heart was to, how do we go and do the sustainable farming thing? Because I love that, but I can't write a check. And God says, no, it's my promise and my provision. And so the heart of the Grand Weaver, this whole podcast, he as the Grand Weaver, as Diane, you were saying, this idea that God has stirred people like you, Diane, with this great passion, but doesn't necessarily have all the means, and has provided
exactly
other people with all these means and are looking for purpose. And so God says, come and share the stories. Create a place where we can share the stories so that we can connect these people together and weave the lives of the stories of men and women who have been stirred in different ways, or God has prepared in different ways for a long time, often, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you were doing over 20 years for this moment, for such a time as this. We love to say that, for such a time as this, but it is beautiful when we see it unfolding. And so that's really the heart of why we're even here today. And so as Diane and I were praying together, and she was prompted to share a book with me, which was really important, even as part of God speaking to me over about a month's time. And so who did I want to be the first guest on the podcast? Diane. And like you said, we tried it before, and here we are again, still the first guest on the podcast. Lots more are coming, but we're super excited. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a divine connection for sure. So,
this
Ron,
purpose
I was...
pathway, Diane. Tell us
Yeah,
about that.
the pathway was, so I start up on this little farm. Everything about my life was small. I grew up on a small farm, went to a small church, about 100 people.
Okay.
Actually a Baptist General Conference church, or Converge, you'd say now. Then attended a small school, my elementary school. I had 6 in my class: Dave, Dan, Scott, Lori, Ann, and me. Not me, and it sounds like Little
The
House on
Super
the
Six.
Prairie.
The Super
Something, right?
Six.
yeah, I saw that episode.
It was literally a 2-room country schoolhouse, 3 grades on each side of the wall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The whole school, teachers, cooks, bus driver, janitor, 50. That was so small is my background.
Yeah.
Then I went to the little country schools merged, and I went to Grantsburg High School.
Okay.
Had 69 in my graduating class. And because I was a good Baptist girl, of course I went to Bethel.
Yes, right. There we go.
I went to Bethel University.
God was at work.
God was at work, drawing me there. And you know what's really cool about Bethel, the Bethel story? That's a lot of money back then. Not compared to now.
Sure.
But I had my friends going to state schools that were a half or a third of the price. But here's a great part of the Bethel story.
Yeah.
So my daddy says to me when I'm 6 years old, honey, someday I'd like you to be able to go to college because I wasn't able to go. And I don't think I'll be able to afford to send you with just being a farmer.
Sure, yeah.
But I got this idea. What if we started a herd for yourself now at 6? We'll go to a nice farm where they're selling purebred registered cattle, and we'll buy your first heifer. But I'm not going to buy it for you. I want you to buy it from your piggy bank. Now, what a great way, though, right? Self-sustainable.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fork it out for you when you can do for yourself, right?
That's a theme.
So
That's
we
a
go to
theme.
this auction, and I picked out this beautiful Holstein, black and white calf that was about a month to 6 weeks old or so. And up she comes into the arena for bidding, and I wasn't the only one that wanted her. So there was another guy who give me 25, give me 30, 35, 40, 40, 45. Okay, so it's going on, and it gets to 50, and that's all I've got. And I was a little bit downcast. That other mean guy was bidding against me, and the auctioneer looked at the other guy and said, let the girl have the calf. And so that's what started my Bethel Fund.
Okay.
I called her Black Gold because I was going to need gold to get through Bethel, right?
Yeah.
And so by the time I graduated, I had like $10,000 in the bank, and I had 18 head of cattle of my own.
Yeah.
And so I just call my dad and say, hey, Dad, I got a bill due at Bethel. Sell Betsy. So cattle paid my way through Bethel.
Oh,
and I
my
came out
goodness.
pretty much debt-free
I
because I
love it.
started at 6.
Yep.
I love that story.
Yep. But the sustainability is a theme in your story in terms of investing in the locals.
Yes.
Allowing them to find ways to lift themselves, to support what they have going on the ground.
Exactly.
So that it can continue to move forward.
I tell them this story when they tell me they need my money. I say, you know what, you guys, you don't need my money. You don't need a handout. You need a leg up. And so, without my dad, we had some creative ways to make that all happen, but it was not a handout. And so there's so many things about my farm life. I see that weaving over there that are woven into how I think about missions.
Yeah, you can absolutely see that.
It's just, I know why God had me born on a farm.
So talk to us about that transition into missionary movements that you were welcomed into as you grew.
So Ron, I never in my life thought about missions, of doing that myself. All growing up, in my little church, I had a high school Sunday school teacher named Millie. That's the closest thing to a youth worker I ever had. Yeah. I never saw her out of a house dress. She always wore one of those really, those cheap house dresses, right? But 4 towns around my little church, high school students poured into our little country. We'd have 25 for Sunday school from the surrounding communities. You know why? Because Millie loved us. That was her trademark. Was she clearly was in love with high school students, and we knew it. We were drawn to her love like flies to light, right? She was amazing. And so when it came time for a career choice, easy for me at Bethel. I'm going to major in social work because Millie was a social worker in our county. And when it was known as one of the best ones in the state. Why? Because she loved God and she loved high school students. So I went to Bethel to major in that and was intending on graduating and being a social worker, hopefully back in my county, kind of following in the footsteps of good old Millie. Then I went to something called Urbana. And it messed with me so bad. It was 1979. I'm sitting there at Champaign, Illinois, in the college there, and it was the last night. And the speaker was none other than Billy Graham. Not your normal Billy Graham talk at all. He spoke straight to us as Christian college students and said, I know this is a different audience than what I'm used to. I'm sure that all of you have been challenged at some point to set goals for your life, right? And you've probably written them down on a piece of paper. You've got your goals all written down. You've got your objectives on how you're going to get there. Wow, I want to make varsity in football my freshman year even. I mean, I'm going to start working for it in elementary school. Or I want to be the valedictorian. Or I'm going to be first chair trumpet player. Or I'm going to go to this university. And you've written down goals, like things stirring in your heart that you want to do, you want to be, you want to accomplish. And that might have been parents that have challenged you, probably a teacher, maybe a coach. But all through your life, you've been challenged. Set goals and set objectives to get there. So you have probably written them all down. And then what you would like God to do is sign his name on the bottom of your goals and put his hand right on them, right?
Make it happen,
and
God.
Make it happen, God.
That's how it works, right?
That's how it works, right? God blesses your plans. Now, so Billy says, turn the card over, and mine isn't blank, but he said, now picture a blank piece of paper. Now, you sign your name on the bottom. You don't ask God to sign. You sign your name on the bottom of a blank piece of paper. Then you just hold it up. And you say, God, this is my life. You're the one who created me. You had a purpose or something in mind. You go ahead and write the script. I've already signed off on the bottom. So I don't know why you created me. I don't know what you had in mind, but you do.
Yeah.
Whew. I sat there going, well, I thought Jesus was both my Savior and my Lord. Tonight I'm seeing that that's not necessarily the case, right? I thought we should have goals, right? Man, so I was a little stunned. I kind of more had in my mind that I would get to drive the car, and I just have Jesus maybe in the front seat, but in the back seat, we don't want backseat drivers, right? If you just, you want them along, right? You want them still along for the ride. Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know how other people felt that night, but I just, God, you're on. I never thought about it this way, but I'll do anything. I'll go anywhere. Whatever you created me for, that's what I want to do. And I give up my script. And so I've signed on the bottom, here you go. It was a very holy moment. I know it was holy to me, and I think it was holy in heaven too, you know? And after a little while, I looked up and said, did you have anything else in mind, or am I close? And he said, yeah, actually you are a little close. I did want you to work with young people. But do you really believe that Carl Rogers and B.F. Skinner and Freud and all those guys have the answer to young people's problems? And I said, actually, no. You know, I haven't been impressed with these guys I've been learning about. And he said, I'm the only one that can change people's lives. Not psychology, not their kind of insights. I transform people, Diane, from the inside out. So I would like for you to be a youth pastor, a youth worker, where I'm at the center of it all, not social work or psychology. And I went, whew, wow. Well, I'm glad I was close. Could I ask you where you were thinking of us doing that? And he said, yeah, I would like you to go back to your hometown. I cried. I sat in my seat. Are you kidding me? Lord, you know that when we graduate from high school, we look forward to the day when we're not going back there. That's behind us, right? I said, really? Like back to Grantsburg? And he said, yes, I want you to go back to Burnett County, and I want you to work with high school students that don't know me. And so I did. It was the fall of 1980, and I stayed there for 20 years. It was, I thought it would be a short stint. I was hoping for
a few years. I'll put in my time.
I'll put in my time, and then I would repeatedly say to him, can I leave yet? Do you know for sure that I called you here? Yeah. Have you heard me call you to leave? No. Okay, end of discussion, kind of a thing, right? Wow. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. But it started by Billy challenging me. God spoke directly to me through him to sign my name on a blank piece of paper. And I'm sitting in this seat with the Grand Weaver because I signed a blank piece of paper. I never knew as part of God's script I would be sitting here. That's a wild thought. But had I not signed it?
I didn't think that 6 months ago either.
The three of us.
Had I not signed that blank piece of paper, there's so many things that would not, and God's script, let me just tell you, so much better than mine. So much bigger, and I never had these plans for my life. If people say, write down your goals, trust me, most of what I've lived wouldn't be on a piece of paper because I didn't even know anything about it. So,
So Eric, he likes to travel a little bit. I'm going to let him ask you a question about where you ended up traveling.
Yeah. Where did you go?
Well, probably, and I would call this, Eric, my signature story. Right. Have you ever been set up by God?
I think a lot more than I realized.
Certainly the Grand Weaver was a setup. No question.
His ways are higher, that whole thing? I'm starting to really understand what that means.
Well, God knows that I'm an experiential leader. Don't stand up. Don't have me sitting at a pew in a church and listen to a pastor. I need to live it. You know, on the farm, you lived it.
Yeah.
You know, you lassoed the bull when you were a little kid and hung on for dear life. Or my brother and I used to have a motto: if there's not a possibility of death, the event isn't fun.
Gotta have a little bit of thrill in there, huh?
Thrill in there, right? And so God knew that about me. And so I ended up going on a short-term mission trip to the Philippines. Our team was assigned to go to a remote rural village area along the seaboard, but where there were no churches. 50 little villages, between 500 and 1,500, sort of in that kind of window. Most of the people living in simple nipa bamboo huts. Very simple life.
Yep.
I looked at the census report for that area when I first got there. It would have a column: name of the village, population, number of male, female, number of students in school, and then it had one more column: number of churches. By every village, 0, except for one, the pastor that we were helping, who moved from Manila to this area to plant churches. He had the one and only church, and I think it was about 20 feet by 12 or 15 feet. Bamboo, stilted little church where my chair, actually, one of the legs dropped through the floor because it just had that bamboo slats right for a floor. Anyway, just picture for a moment what our lives would be like if there was no churches of any kind in our communities. None. Nobody to marry you, nobody to bury you, no church to go to on a Sunday to learn, no Sunday school, no youth group, no Bible camp, no retreats. I mean, nothing. There was literally nothing of Christian influence in that whole area. So we were assigned to go down there and do evangelism. And we chose to do the Jesus film. So every single night we would string up a sheet between trees in a village, invite everybody to come and show the Jesus film. And it was a life-changing experience, the whole thing. But one day, this Filipina gal came up to me and said, "What are you guys doing here anyway?" And I said, "We're here because we want people to meet Jesus. So we're here to help introduce Jesus to the villages in this area." And she said, "You know, a lot of us have heard something about Jesus." But she said, "There is one village," and she points up the mountain, the highest point overlooking the seaboard. And she said, "That village up there has a church." I said, "Really? Well, tell me about it." She said, "There's this little girl about 7 years old. She's been having nightmares. And in her nightmares, she sees this guy, and he comes and visits her in her sleep and scares the tar out of her. I mean, he's really scary. And so after repeated dreams of this guy, she goes to the village chief, and she says, "I'm having dreams, and I'm scared at night. I'm scared to go to sleep." And he said, "Well, what are your dreams like, honey?" And so she described him and described this guy, and he goes, "Sounds like a guy that died about 20 years ago. I mean, you're describing someone we would know in this village, the older people, right?" And so he says, "It's kind of odd that you would be able to describe him so clearly." So the chief and the elders were talking about this, and they said, "Let's dig him up." Okay, so we don't have. It doesn't matter if you have a casket.
Different
or not.
cultures and different things. I guess. I didn't see that one coming. But okay.
Let's dig him up and see what he looks like. So they gathered together with their shovels and go to where they knew that they don't have like a cemetery, but where they remembered that he was placed in. They dig him up, and oh my gosh, the skin was, and the hair on his arms was still all there. Like if it was your Uncle Eric, you would recognize him. Wow. It was wild. Okay, so they were all pretty blown away.
Just for the record, I would never dig my uncle.
Yeah, I would never.
Carry on.
I know where my uncle's buried. He's right near the farm, and I'm not digging him up either.
Leave that one alone.
And I bet if I did, he wouldn't be pretty whole.
Yeah, I would not imagine.
I think he died in the 70s, 50 years ago probably. So anyway, here's LoLo Jose.
Yeah.
So they're like, whoa, what do we do? And they came up with, you know what? This guy has defied the laws of decomposition.
Yeah.
He must be some kind of deity. He must be some kind of God.
Something special about him.
Something special, to
Yeah.
put it mildly, right?
Yeah.
So they dig him up, they give him a bath, clean him off, and they build a little white chapel, kind of about the size of this side room. And they put him in a plexiglass box. They put some candles on the top of the box. They have little offering places. People were coming from all over the Philippine Islands to worship LoLo Jose and pray to him. So when this girl tells me this story, I go back to my team and I go, there's one more village for sure.
Yeah. We gotta stop by up here. Huh?
We gotta get to that one.
Yeah.
So we rent a portable generator from the largest town in the area. It's a big beast that we have to carry up, this heavy generator, and there's no roads going up there. You have to hike up the mountain. Gosh. So we hike up the mountain with this generator, our projector with the big reels, right? And the Jesus film.
Yeah.
So we get to the top and somebody met us and I said, could you take me to the chief? I want to talk to the village chief. So we meet him and explain why we're there and what we want to do and a little bit about the Jesus film, right?
Yeah.
And ask him if we would have his permission
Yeah.
to show it. Sure, you can do that. And I'll bring you to where I'd like to see you do it. Takes us over to the schoolyard. Here you can string up your sheet between these poles and sir, could we go around to the whole village, to every hut, and go out in the fields where people are working their fields with their team of oxen and everything? We want the farmers, the rice farmers. We want everybody to come. Bring their kids,
Yeah.
So once it gets dark, keep in mind, no electricity. They've never even seen a light bulb, much less a movie, right? It was a stunning night. Like unforgettable on so many levels.
Yeah.
Okay. So we fire up the projector and the Jesus film begins. Everyone sat mesmerized. Children's butts never touched the ground as they squatted and looked. They're captivated by Jesus, right? I watched a village fall in love with Jesus. And I think, what's happened to us now? Have we gotten used to this? Right? And so anyway, as you know, the story of Jesus is told in the Gospels. It begins to build and tension comes in and the kids are looking around and the adults like, what is going on? Like, it seems like some people don't like him.
Yeah.
And they're concerned. And like, what is going to happen to him? Well, by the time it gets to putting him up on the cross, nobody could look at the screen anymore. Heads are down. People are doing like this. Tears are beginning to flow.
Starting to feel it, huh?
From looking at each other out of the corner of their eye, like, what in the world is happening to this good guy? All he's done is nice things for people, and now some bad people are going to kill him. Wow, I just sat there and thought, how did I ever get used to this?
Yeah.
Like, what happened to me?
That was just a little glimpse of what it must have been like. Right? Just a glimpse.
Right. It was sobering. And I leaned over to my friend and said, wait till they see what happens next.
Yeah.
So, they take him down from the cross. The whole village is so sad. They're just heartbroken. Bring him to the tomb and roll the stone in place. And then comes Easter. It's Friday, but Sundays are coming, right? The village went nuts. Like you would have thought their team won the World Cup, or Green Bay won the Super Bowl,
or the Vikings 5-0. I'm just kidding. I'm not a Vikings fan. I'm a Chiefs fan.
I know, but it was like that.
Is that why you wore the green sweater today?
Well, no, it's more like jade.
Okay.
Be nice.
But they were ruckus.
They were pumped. They're hugging each other. They're high fiving. They're just so excited.
Yeah.
And then my friend goes up. I just want you to know that Jesus sent us here to your village because he wanted you to meet him. Now, as you saw, he's alive. He's not LoLo Jose. He's not in a box, motionless. He has eyes, but he can't see, and he has ears, but he can't hear, and he's got a mouth, but he can't speak. But this Jesus is alive. Now, if anyone here would like to pray and give your life to Jesus, just surrender your life to Jesus and ask him to come in and change you, he will. So if that's one of you, you just come up and we'll pray. It was like pom-pom pull-away at that little school I went to. We got stampeded. Everybody in the village that could walk is on their feet running forward because they all want to get saved. I never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Wow. And so I literally told my friend, explain a little more and make it harder. like repentance and get rid of your good luck charms around your neck. And I mean, really, this is it. Jesus only, right? She's doing that. They're all nodding their heads. We don't want any of that other stuff. Okay, so whole village basically prays, oh, Jesus, come into my life and change me. I surrender all. Then there's about 12 to 15 moms. They're pushing their way up front. They've got young children with them between the ages of like 6 and maybe the oldest 12 to 14. It's very apparent that they want to be in the front. So I asked a high school translator, hey, why are these moms coming up with these kids? There's a lot more moms, obviously, in the village than that, but these 12 to 15. So she asked them, and they say, because none of our children can speak anymore. Like, what? Anymore? So, I mean, I didn't grow up with this in my little country church, and we weren't exposed to this at Bethel, I might add.
Movements of the Spirit, huh?
Right? This was a different deal here.
You did say Baptist, right?
Right, I did. And I love my background. And my Baptist background laid a solid foundation in my life. But the supernatural, I remember even thinking as a high school kid, sitting in a pew in my church on Thanksgiving time and saying to the Lord, if this is all there is to you, I'm not sure I can do this for a lifetime. That was my words. I said, man, what I see in the Bible and what I see in my church, they don't line up. I want to see some of the good stuff, right? I said, this is kind of boring. So here I am now, fast forward to this village. And so they say, anymore. So I say to the moms, you mean your children were speaking? What happened? And they said, well, about 6 months ago, one at a time, they would come home from school, this school. They wouldn't be able to say a single word. They said, none of the children that are up here, they can't say anything. I'm like, so I look up, yoo-hoo. I mean, this is quite literally what it was. Yoo-hoo, Lord, as you know, we're in way over our heads. I've never been involved in anything like this. I have no clue how to get demons out of people. I've never been involved in exorcism. So let me just say, if there's any time that you should show up, I would suggest it might be right about now. Like I needed him bad. Because I told him too, if you don't show up, may I just say, I think you'll look bad.
This is your moment, Jesus.
This is your moment. Be on it. Be on it. And so I had never had like an awake vision before. Like you're fully awake, but you have a vision. I had a vision of Jesus. I won't do it here because I need to stay in my seat for the sake of the video. But I saw Jesus get up from his throne and he walked to the edge of heaven And he had his arms crossed. He was wearing, what you kind of, that stereotype of Jesus. He's got his white robe on. He's got this rope around his waist. He's got his sandals. And he's got a smirk on his face. So he's kind of looking down at that little village in the Philippines with a smirk on his face, looking right at me. And he said, get a load of this. He said, Diane, I've seen your ministry. Tonight, I'm going to show you mine. And it wasn't me. It wasn't, I didn't feel condemned. I didn't feel like he was, I just felt like he was making a true statement. And I said, you're right. And if you'd like to show me your ministry tonight, make my day. Just have at it, right? Okay, so then I stand there and wait because I'm expecting Jesus is going to show up and show off. And it goes about a minute, nothing. I said, I thought you said you're going to show me yours. And is there anything you want me to do, or are you just going to do it all by yourself? And he said, no, you can just put your hand on that little boy in front of you. He's about 6 years old, I guess. Put your hand on his shoulder and just pray for him. Oh, I can do that. So I put my hand on his shoulder and I looked up again and I said, Lord, I guess this kid has maybe like a mute spirit or something in him, some demon that won't let him talk. I don't know how to get him out. So if you want this boy to talk again, then you got to get this demon out of him. Amen. Bam! The kid fell backwards like a log. It was like I shot him between the eyes with a 45. Bam! He's laying on the ground, deader than a doornail and not moving a flinch. And I'm looking at him wide-eyed and I go, God, now the kid is dead. And I don't know how to raise the dead either.
What are you doing to me, Jesus?
What do you go from one over my head to another level, right? Oh, it was scary. So I'm looking at this, what I think is a dead kid, right? About a minute, I'd say. He jumps up and he is talking a mile a minute. Just he can't shut up. His mom is all wide-eyed. They hug each other. They cry. They want to hug me. I'm pointing to the screen. No. Like not me, him. And then we prayed for all the other 12, 15 kids that were demon-possessed. And by about 3 a.m, every single one is fine.
Wow.
Kind of like a little bit unforgettable, you might say.
Yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit like, wow. And I can tell you, being very transparent and honest, I didn't think it was going to work. Because where I came from, stuff like that didn't happen.
Doesn't happen.
So I was full of doubt, full of fear, full of all kinds of things like good luck, Charlie kind of a thing. I hope it works. Then, so people have seen all this, right? So now what's next? About 3 a.m, all the sick, goiters in your neck, crippled and bent over, other illnesses. I don't know if people had cancer or what, but bring them up and pray for them now. I remember the first one, bent over like 90 degrees, just unable to stand up. So I asked her, it's very apparent what her issue is, right? How long have you been like this, ma'am? I think it was 18 years. It was either 15 or 18 years since she had been able to stand up. Everybody out there listening, get up right now and bend over at a 90-degree angle and just walk for a little bit. And then when you want to try to bend your neck up, and the pain that comes to your neck when you're bent over like that. Well, that was this lady.
That was life,
So I put my hand on her back. Oh, first I said to the team, anybody have experience in healing cripples? None of us, right? I go, me either, you guys. I've never seen anything like this. So, here we go. I put my hand on her back and I said, this is how I prayed, my words. Jesus, I guess this woman wants to stand up straight. And there's really not a diddly thing that I can do about it. So if you want her to stand up straight, you got to do something. I feel and hear her bones in her back popping and cracking. Wow. I'm like, listen, you guys, something's going on. She stands up straight as you and me. So then this goes on till about 5:30 in the morning. Everybody gets healed. I'm telling you, I was set up for this one.
For sure.
And it's over, and it's time to walk back down the mountain. But then the village chief comes up to me, and this is the foundational questions for the rest of my life. So, Sister Diane, how long ago did this Jesus live here on the earth? Quite a while, sir. And he says, I don't want to hear quite a while. I want to find out if you know. And I said, actually, I do, sir, but I wasn't going to tell you the answer because I didn't think you'd like it. It's been about 2,000 years, sir. His big brown eyes fill up with tears that start to run down his brown leathered face. Can I ask you how come it's taken so long for somebody to get here? Branded in my brain forever and pierced my heart. Wow. I'm so glad I met him. Because his never before have two questions had so much impact. So then I had a question for him. Hey, sir, can you take me to the top of the mountain where the little white chapel is? I'd really like to meet LoLo Jose. And so we walked up there together, walked in and see the candles burning at the front, see some food offerings, some coins. I walk up there and look at them and think, certainly dead, but pretty amazing that he has his skin on and his hair and if he was my uncle, I would have recognized him. So I turned to the chief and said, you just met Jesus. So this guy's not that impressive. Like Jesus has eyes and he sees us and ears and he hears us and a mouth and he speaks. And this guy, although it's unusual.
Pretty impressive.
Right, for skin to still be on. But I mean, I'm not super impressed. And I said, you know what I'd like to suggest that you do? I think you should bury him again. I think you should go back to his place and dig the hole a little bit better maybe and clear out some of the dirt and put him right back in there and cover him up. Because now you know a living God. You know the living one, right? And, I couldn't do that. Sister Diane, I couldn't do that. Like, what if we've already seen what happens when the spirits get angry with our kids. What if the spirits get angry and they come and attack our village again because we messed with LoLo Jose? So I said, Lord, he's got a point. And I said, I can kind of understand that. I mean, you have some fear about this. I said, let's just pray and ask the Lord what we should pray about. So I put my hand on the glass casket and I said, Lord, you've heard this chief and he's a little bit scared. Why don't you just have the skin fall off this guy and just turn him into a skeleton like they're supposed to be, like normal, right? Like normal. And then they'll know he's not a god. So it didn't happen right that moment. I went back home a few days after that, and then I get notified that guess what? Some people went in to, turn the lights on, and all of LoLo Jose's skin laid on the bottom of the casket, and he was there just a pile of bones. Wow. Yeah. So, needless to say, that experience redirected my whole life, and it's the two questions. So while I was still up there, I said to the Lord, okay, Lord, I want to give. So I'm probably at that time, how old am I? Maybe like about 35-ish. I say, I want to give the rest of my life to reaching the ends of the earth, to rural villages like San Isidro that have never heard about Jesus.
God had big plans for this little girl with humble beginnings in Wisconsin. We invite you to join us for part 2 as we hear about how this experience in the Philippines and the other experiences in her life ultimately shaped and prepared her to start Global Seed Planters. So come and join us as we hear about how that ministry unfolded and what it looks like today.